Hola, queridos. I'm Melanie Mendez Gonzalez, founder of Gay Means What. Today I am at San Antonio College with, what do I say, Playwright?
Yes, Playwright. And otra comadre.
And otra comadre.
We did not plan this, by the way.
But we look cute. So I'm with Playwright, Irene Chavez Galvan. Welcome, Irene.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Tell me about Irene.
So I've always had a love of theater and performance, and this idea or this love kind of came back to me in a very strong way during COVID. And I was really longing for that, the things that make life beautiful, which is art and poetry and theater. I basically prayed and manifested this opportunity. Submitted a piece to the Artist at Work program, and that was a wonderful opportunity where they gathered different artists and for a year paid them a living wage and allowed them to create and be in community. And so the idea of creating a piece with that was telling of our elder story, especially with the impeding gentrification and everything that's happening on the West Side, was born from that. And so I got connected to the Cultural Hub, which was San Pedro Playhouse under Claudia Del Vasco. And so she and Angie Hernandez chose me as the recipient for the program. And then I had already been working with and brought in a social impact partner with Seniors in Play, Tony Plana, who's a great friend and mentor.
So when you started working on this, did you have the idea for your play already?
Yes, I'd already been doing some work with Seniors in Play. And so the program in itself is at every senior center in Bexar County, but at the time was only at 2. And what Tony would do is he would bring the group together to basically do improv, act, perform, and tell their own stories. Yeah. So there were, getting up and talking about the challenges and these stories of resiliency were coming up. And so I was inspired and thought, we should be talking about that more. And people fall in love, and it doesn't matter how old you are. So it's the play, and what came of it is there's some center themes about loss and grief and also love.
And the name of the play is Las Comadres.
Las Comadres de Morales Street. And there is an actual Morales Street on the west side, but it's also a nod to Morales Street in Corpus Christi, where I'm from, and where my mother grew up.
So tell me a little bit about the play without giving it all away. I also don't want to know completely all of it because I want to come and watch it.
Yeah,
but,
no, absolutely.
So tell me, the basis of it is it's based in San Antonio. And what else?
It's Westside San Antonio. It's these two comadres who are little chismosas and have survived COVID and the snow, and they've survived, they're both widows, so they've survived outliving their husbands, and they're seeing the neighborhood change, right? And so the gentrification, people trying to buy their house. One of the characters is in love, has found love again at that time of her life, and it's been surprising. And there's all kinds of things in between. So there's also 2 younger characters, Izzy and Luz, who are representative of like people in transition who have just gone through a divorce that are coming back into the neighborhood and seeing the impact and the effects. And it's a fun piece, and it reminds us that we're all in community. And this particular play is about just a group of people's lives who live on this particular street, and just being able to glimpse into that window.
I felt like if anybody who wasn't familiar with the West, in particular, the West Side of San Antonio, and wanted to know what holds it together, it's the Comadres.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. It's the comadres. It's our comadres. It's the community that looks out for each other and goes and knocks on doors. We saw that during COVID and the snow, right, where people were like, "Are you okay? Do you have heat? Do you have food?" And so I wanted to pull that in because I don't feel like that story is getting told anywhere.
Right.
And I really feel like that representation matters not only on the stage, but in the screen. And I thought, if no one else is going to do it, I'd like to.
Yeah.
I want to put it center stage. And there's not a lot of stories that are centered around our elders. Someone who's in their 60s or 70s. And there's a lot of misgivings or assumptions made. And, as long as you have breath in you, you have opportunity. And so that's really one of the driving forces.
When people say elders, you immediately think the people in my family.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But I also saw some of myself in it, right? In the characters. So where did you go to be able to create these characters that felt relatable to all ages?
Yeah, I would be in places that were unexpected, like Tommy's restaurant, and I'd overhear women going, "Eh, mira esta, mira, mira, mira," and I was like, "That's good." Like they would interact and go, "Did you hear about Tony's daughter?" And then it was everywhere. And then we all have aunts and uncles and family, and so just remembering like my grandparents, my father, my uncle, people that surround us that are around for family events, right? Quinces and weddings and funerals, unfortunately, and then stories that we all have. So like, there's a nod to a quinceañera, and how one of the characters talks about like, yeah, do you remember I stood up in your quince? Like we're cool, and she's like, what? And she's like, yeah, remember you didn't want to have your ugly cousin come from the valley, and so I had to stand up and do it. Yeah.
I like it because when I was reading it, it's like I can imagine who the people are and what they may look like.
Yeah.
And we don't always get to see our own reflections, right?
Yes.
In that way. So I appreciate that you wrote it in this way that feels like this is us.
Yeah, and I did my best to do little nods to, like, I had a mentor, Jaime Martinez, who grew up in La Tripa, and I remember asking him, like, why do they call it La Tripa? And he's like, because of the slaughterhouses that were down the way. And I was like, oh my gosh. So there's all these little bits and pieces that I've been here. Like, I'm originally from Corpus, right? But I came here to go to school at St. Mary's, and I stayed, and my childhood looks a lot like the West Side. Like, you go to the West Side of Corpus, the West Side of San Antonio, it's pretty similar.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of the same similar issues, these generational poverty, lack of infrastructure, just a whole slew of things. So it's really a reflection on a lot of different cultures, a lot of different Morales streets. I think there's Morales streets across the nation. And so if we can at least acknowledge our families in those and in those reflections, if we can tell the story, and you don't have to agree with everything, but it gets a dialogue going because there's so much that's there to unpack.
So let's talk a little bit about where this play is, how it started, and then what's going to happen, because I know I didn't understand what happens when a playwright writes a play. Like, I thought it was like, oh, you write the play, then it gets produced. But there's a different process. So share with us a little bit about that.
So there was a wonderful opportunity with Teatro Aldez, who was looking to highlight and lift up stories that were from local playwrights. And so this was a part of their Nuestras Historias program series.
Okay.
And so there were 4 playwrights that were chosen, and I'm the last.
Okay.
And so the good news is this allows us an opportunity as playwrights to really work with the actors, the dramaturgists, the director, and get the script in a way that is ready to be performed. So the open free stage reading, which happens April 28th, is the public's opportunity to see it and go, oh, that's cool. And if you like it, then the hope is that we can get enough, momentum to get it produced for a play, like on the stage, performed. And so that could be at any theater. I will take any stage. In order to have, like, you need costumes, you need actors, you need props. So the whole production is the end goal. And so this is the first big step towards that. And hopefully when people see it, it'll resonate with them. They'll want to see it fully performed and fully produced.
Well, I can't wait to see it come together, come to life. And I appreciate that you took the opportunity that you had and created something about our community and who we are. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for continuing to tell stories and uplift people, whether that's Latinas in leadership or, lowly playwrights like myself who are trying to make it. I think our stories matter. And I think that that's something that you always have been really great at doing. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Irene. I appreciate that. I hope that you heard what I heard. And we need to celebrate Irene's upcoming stage reading of Las Comadres on Morales Street.
Yes.
And also, I appreciate that you shared with us a little bit about the process. So if someone's listening and wants to write a play, they understand, have a little bit more insight. Or because this is not your job. You don't write plays as your job.
I do not, and I do not have a master's in English, but I have a love of literature. I performed, and I wanted to be able to tell the story. And yeah, I mean, I have an MBA.
Yeah,
that doesn't really qualify me for playwriting. It's helpful.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah, but I think it's all of us are creatives. I think as we're children, we create, we do art, we do a lot of things that we love, and I've just been glad to have the opportunity to refocus on that creativeness, because we all have it within us. I was able to see that in Seniors in Play with our elders, and I was talking to a class the other day, and they asked me about, like, how'd you get into it? And they're like, we don't have to be credentialed, like, you don't need. And I said, no, just start where you're at. Start where you're at, start telling the story, and then other things will fall into place.
Yes, and that's what I want people to hear.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Irene.
You're very welcome. Thank y'all.